Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always, that is Austin Davidson. It's Season 5, Episode 26. We are turning our attention to Week 7 of the NFL season. Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. The last two unbeaten teams in the AFC to enter, barring a tie, only one will remain. So getting into this game, it's obviously going to be a huge matchup, Austin. We've had a little bit of time to dwell on it. How are you feeling about this game right now?
I feel okay. I could see it going either way at the moment, but I feel good about where the Steelers are strong, and I feel scared of where the Titans are strong. So it's just, I feel okay at that. That's what it averages out to.
So the Steelers and Titans go way back to the days when the Titans were the the Houston Oilers, then the Tennessee Oilers, and now the Tennessee Titans. The Steelers having won the last two games against the Titans, Austin and I were sharing some old highlight videos back from the last decade from the Steelers and Titans game. Some wins for both sides. The Steelers have had more of the wins recently, but they have not had a ton of success at Nissan Stadium, the Titans' current home facility, since 1999. The Steelers having won their most recent game there in 2014, but for the large part have not had much success there, including a loss in 2012 at that stadium as well. So, getting into this game, honestly, I really feel like this particular matchup has not gotten the same hype that other games this week have gotten, and it kind of surprises me how this game isn't necessarily being pushed under the rug, but it's just not being talked about as much as I feel like it should be.
Just because it's a 1 o'clock game. And that might really be why. CBS really paid a lot of money to keep it at the scheduled time so that it couldn't be moved, even though we saw Cardinals and Seahawks move to Sunday Night Football. I think that's a big reason. But I mean, this game is being broadcast as the national game everywhere besides New York, which is really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. But
yeah, you look at that map. You look at that map. There's 3 games on CBS in the 1 o'clock window. There's Bengals and Browns, so understandably all of Ohio is the shade of the color for that game. And then you've got Jets and Bills, so the whole state of New York and a little bit of areas of New Jersey and Pennsylvania are for the Bills and Jets game. And everything else, the entire country, Alaska, Hawaii, everyone else is all Steelers and Titans. So we'll have to find a way to watch it, of course. So, disappointing, but it is what it is. I also feel like they're not talking this game up as much because these teams aren't playing sexy football. The Titans are a throwback style team, running it hard with Derrick Henry, not a ton of open, widespread passing game. The Steelers haven't been, overly dominant in any of their wins prior to last week's game. And they're doing it mostly with solid defense and clean play from the offense that hasn't put up a ton of explosive plays. So I think that probably has something to do with it too.
yeah, I could totally see that.
All right, where to now? You want to start with the injury report so far?
Yeah, let's talk about the injury report. It's not that great comparatively, but the Steelers have Mike Hilton with a shoulder and Derek Watt also with the hamstring. They are out. There are no other designations this week, meaning Deontay Johnson, David DeCastro, and Marquise Pouncey are all good to go. So that's actually good, only 2 players. But the problem is when you look at the Titans have literally no designations this week. They're coming to this game at full strength, and in fact, they activated Adoree Jackson for this game. Adoree, I don't know why I said Adoree. Adoree Jackson for this game. So Titans coming in full strength.
Yeah, minus, of course, the losses that both teams suffered to a full-time starter last week. The Steelers losing Devon Bush and the Titans losing Taylor Lewan, their left tackle. What do you think is a bigger loss for this game alone?
I feel like it's the Titans, Lewan. losing the lawn against one of the best pass rushers in the league is really, really bad. I mean, the Titans' offensive line has been one of the best in the league. They've given up they're tied for the least amount of sacks given up. So losing Lawan, I think, is a big deal. Bud Dupree gets to attack that side, and that's going to be tough.
Yeah, his replacement. What is his name? His name is
Wilson?
Ty Sambrailo. Braylio. Ty Sambrailo.
Ty Sambraio.
Sambraio.
Used to be a Bronco. I thought it was Isaiah Wilson. I guess Isaiah Wilson starting on the other side. He must be their starter.
I'm looking at the guys who lead in snaps there. Dennis Kelly has the most snaps at right tackle, Nate Davis at right guard, Ben Jones at center, Roger Saffold at left guard.
Oh. I'm pretty sure Isaiah Wilson gets the start at left tackle, not Sambraio.
I don't even...
Not 100%, though.
I don't even see him on here.
Really? That seems weird. He had an illness, and it kept him out of practice this week. I don't know. I thought that he was the backup.
Maybe he didn't play last week because of that.
I don't think he played last week.
I'm not seeing any... Huh. He didn't play last week. The NFL.com statistics are pretty cumbersome, the website. It's not really helping me find out if he's played or not. According to this, though, from what I can tell, he has not played. So it's either going to be him or Sambraio.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's Sambraio, he graded last week really well against in the run, not well against the pass. He gave up a sack and a pressure and had a penalty against him in just 30 snaps.
Interesting.
All right. And then what else here? We talked about Devon Bush on the last podcast. There were some corresponding moves. So the Steelers put Devon Bush on injured reserve and promoted defensive lineman Henry Mondeau to the active roster. They then signed linebacker Ray Wilborn to the practice squad to take the spot of Henry Mondeau. He most recently played at Ball State before signing as a UDFA with the Atlanta Falcons. He did not make the initial cut down, so Austin, thank you for doing that little research there. The Steelers have a 52-man roster right now because they have cut punter Dustin Colquitt. The Steelers have plans to re-sign Jordan Berry after this game, but because of the COVID-19 protocols, he won't be available for this game. And it's expected that practice squad punter Corliss Waitman will be elevated for this game. What do you make of all this?
It's interesting that the Steelers are going into this with a 52-man roster. I understand why after all of the moves, but it just seems weird. Like, I feel like they should have just stuck with Colquitt, made him inactive, and then cut him after this game. I guess it saves like a little bit money. Like, Colquitt wasn't really that expensive in the first place due to his position. So, I mean, I guess whatever cap you could save, it's fine. But I don't know. This was interesting. We talked about on the last podcast that after this, Colquitt might have only had one game left, and I was wrong. He had less than a day or two left. That was it for him. All I know about Waitman is he's got a leg. Like, he's got a really, really strong leg. That's all I heard about him. I'm pretty confident that he is going to be the only black punter to start this year so far, which is, like, kind of interesting.
Whatever happened to Marquette King? Because that guy was awesome for a couple of years, or at least I thought he was, and he disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, he was signed with the Broncos, and he really got hurt with them, and then he just never found work after that. He went to not the AAF, he went to the...
XFL.
XFL, yeah. He went to the XFL for a while, and then a bunch of people for Pittsburgh had been clamoring for him, been asking, and there was a lot of love thrown his way, and he saw and recognized, he talked about it on Twitter, and said he's going to throw a big party in Pittsburgh regardless because of all the love he got this past week or so. But yeah, no, it just never materialized into anything, and I guess he's just not that good anymore after those injuries. He took hamstring injuries with the Broncos.
So his entire career with the Raiders, the 5 years he was there, His worst net average was 40 yards, and he was averaging his worst season as a net for punt worst average for punt was 44.5 yards. His 1 year with Denver, he only played 4 games, netted under 40 yards, and averaged just over 44. So, I don't know. Perhaps he doesn't have that same leg that he used to have. I remember he had a few wild trick plays.
Jens was wild. He was really good when he was with the Raiders. I guess he just fell off.
I digress anyways. I don't know about... I guess having Waitman for this game is the most likely choice, but I don't understand waiting right now to do it. It feels like something they should have done sooner.
Yeah. I'm also not excited about the Berry stuff. It's just like why... I don't want to go into it too much because I know we talked about it last podcast, but why are you going back to the guy you just cut, 5 weeks ago? It's a very bad look. I don't like it. You should have tried someone new instead, but,
To me, they're just interchangeable parts, and I know that we agree on that.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, what do you want to talk about next when we're looking at the Steelers and Titans game? You want to talk about the Titans offense against the Steelers defense, or other side, Steelers offense versus the Titans defense?
How about, what do you think is more interesting? Let's go with that.
Well, I think the clear matchup that everyone's looking at is the Titans offense and Derrick Henry against the Steelers defense. Let me ask you personally, are you actually, what are you thinking more about? Are you thinking more about the Derrick Henry running game, or are you thinking more about Ryan Tannehill in this one?
What's funny is I'm thinking more about Ryan Tannehill. I know a lot of people are freaking out about Derrick Henry, about how good he is, but I think people seem to forget that Henry doesn't always have these great games. He tends to start slow, and granted, last week he got started. He got going for 200 yards, but for usually half a season, he gets shut down on the ground pretty easily. He's not unstoppable. It's not like that. And Ryan Clark got caught a lot of flack today because he was saying that. He's if you get Derrick Henry in the backfield, getting him running side to side, you're going to be able to tackle him. Yeah, he's a beast. And, once he gets going, he is going. But it just, if you're able to get to him and you're able to gang tackle and get him down, it's not that bad if a team is ready for it. So, that being said, not that Derrick Henry's not a good player, and that's what Ryan Clark had to defend. A lot of people are saying, you don't think Derrick Henry's a good player? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what Ryan Clark said. He is a great player. It's just that he's not unstoppable. He has weaknesses to his game despite being an athletic freak and really, really good in certain games. But that being said, I'm worried about Tannehill. Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, those are really good guys. Even Ferguson. Ferguson was playing really well behind Jonnu Smith last week after Smith went out with his injury. Adam Humphries has been a guy that's pretty quiet, but he is also really good. I am scared of the A.J. Brown to Tannehill connection. A.J. Brown's been a guy I've been a big fan of. He is the guy that from that class I claimed could be the best wide receiver of his class. At the moment, it kind of seems like DK Metcalf, his
college
partner in crime at Ole Miss. Yeah, but A.J. Brown's not far behind. The reason why we just don't really talk about A.J. Brown is he just got off his injury, had a bone bruise for a while, but he's a scary man, and he is who I'm scared of most in this game. Not Derrick Henry. Not that Derrick Henry can't have a big game. It's just I feel way more comfortable with the Steelers' rush defense than their pass defense. I think the defense as a whole is solid, but I'm sorry to stretch out this question, but the answer is I'm more afraid of Tannehill in this game.
Yeah, well, the Steelers are the most blitz-happy team in the league. Even without Devon Bush, I think that they're going to be a very aggressive attacking run defense. They just shut down the top rushing unit in the league. And I think to reinforce your point here, Austin, about Derrick Henry, is that when he is running like he was last week, he is unstoppable, but he's not always that player.
Yeah.
So, for instance, he's played 5 games this year. In 3 games, he has been relatively pedestrian by his standards. He's had 3 different games where he's not been very efficient with the ball, where he's been averaging less than 3.7 yards a carry, which I know is not the only stat to use for gauging a running back's effectiveness, but there are several games where he hasn't been really effective. Like the game against the Bills, he only had 57 yards, and I know the Titans won handily, but that game was close for a decent amount of time, and he was not a big factor in the game. So, go ahead.
Something else that needs to be pointed out is he's not a big receiving threat either. Like, most catches he's finished within a season is 18. That's last year. For me to be really scared of a running back, he needs to be complete. Like Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey can run and be dangerous with the pass. Derrick Henry, and this is why I think this works in the Steelers' favor. If the Steelers know when the Titans are running, I feel very confident. I feel like that they're going to be able to gang tackle and stuff. It's just Derrick Henry has not been the greatest pass catcher. I think people forget about that. They don't really think about it because he just doesn't really finish with that many catches.
Derrick Henry has 8 catches for 84 yards this year and one 53-yard catch, so he has 31 catches on 31 yards on 7 other receptions this year. So he and Christian McCaffrey, I think, are two different types of running backs that may be a little bit better. You know, they're better types of guys that you might actually consider paying a little more given what they do and how they can impact the game. But they are still replaceable, I think, is the whole idea behind the running back, and that it's more about the quarterback ultimately and what's going on, especially when you consider the Steelers' top-ranked run defense and the fact that of any weakness that the Steelers' defense has right now, it's been their back end. And when they're as blitz-happy as they have been this year, I think it puts more stress on the DBs, and I think that we're going to see a little bit more of that this week too.
Yeah, I could 100% see that. And you're right. Like, we don't hide it. We are not fan of the running back position anymore as much as maybe we used to be. It's not one of the most important positions, at least to me, anymore. And I think that's just why, like, at least why I am not as scared of a running back anymore. It's just there's never going to be a running back that scares me. I'm going to be thinking about their offensive line, think about who their quarterback is, and who their wide receivers are before I start even thinking about who their running back is. And part of the reason why I also think Derrick Henry can be contained in this game is there's no more Taylor Lewan, as we talked about already. And Taylor Lewan's a really good tackle. He's one of the best. So it's going to be tougher to run off the left side. And I know that you said Sambraio had a really good he had a solid run blocking grade from PFF, but I still don't think it's as good as Lewan's, in my opinion.
So I still think this is a relatively good matchup for the Steelers defense, unless if they blow a couple tackles like they did against the Eagles and Miles Sanders had his 74-yard run. Again, the only explosive run the Steelers have allowed this year, certainly to a running back. But the thing about the running game is that it used to be you used to run the ball because you weren't getting as much out of it as a passing attack, but teams were turning the ball over so much in the passing game that it wasn't worth it. So it was a low risk, low reward, but turning the football over is the worst thing you could do. So it was more efficient to run the ball. Now that throwing the ball is more efficient than ever, interception rates have dropped to very low percentages. Throwing the ball is typically the more efficient way to go. That's kind of what analytics tell you. And unless if you have really good rushing offenses like the Ravens did last year, or even what the Titans did last year at times, that's why teams should be throwing it more with those exceptions. But even this year, Ryan Tannehill is doing a very good job throwing the football. To give you some stats, Tannehill, in terms of his passer rating this year when he's kept with a clean pocket, is 12th in the NFL at over 110. And even when he's under pressure, he actually has the best passer rating in the league when he's under pressure. So he's playing very efficient football, and he's not taking many deep shots this year, Austin. This is something I wanted to take a look at. He actually has the fewest deep attempts in the NFL among 32 quarterbacks, or actually not the fewest. He has the sixth fewest, so he hasn't attempted many. He's attempted 12. The guy with the most, I believe, is Derek Carr. No, Carson Wentz with 40. So he's thrown not many at all, but he's completing 2/3. He's completed 8 of his 12 deep passes, which is the best mark in the league. So when he has gone deep, he's been extremely efficient.
I mean, it also helps when their red zone percentage is as efficient as it is, you know? They were completing 82.4% of their red zone trips. They were turning those into touchdowns. So, like, he is very efficient with the ball, and that's kind of scarier to me. It doesn't need that he can drive down the field on you. Then once he gets into the red zone, it's likely that he's going to score, and it's almost impossible to get the Titans out of the red zone. They're not leaving the red zone without any points. It's not happening this year.
Unless if it's week 1 and you're in Denver for whatever reason, Steven Gostkowski can't kick there, but he seems to be having a good year besides that to prove your point there. So when it comes to this Titans offense, I think the Steelers are still going to be very aggressive. I think that they should be able to get good pressure on Tannehill, but as we've seen this year, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be playing badly. He's a very good quarterback under pressure this season. I still like the Steelers' defensive matchup. As long as they don't give up the big run to Henry, I think they'll be able to keep him in check. The one thing I'd be worried about, besides potentially getting burned on a few play-action passes, which I know the Titans will attempt in this game, would be if the Titans do, because Mike Vrabel's an old Bill Belichick disciple. Bill Belichick used to go into these games where the Steelers would have great running defenses, and instead of trying to run the ball, they'd just spread it out and they'd throw it 35 of their first 40 plays. So I don't think the Titans would do that, but I'd be worried if they did.
That would be unideal. Another matchup I'm looking for in this game is going to be seeing Jonnu Smith versus the linebackers. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Or Terrell Edmonds.
Or Terrell Edmonds. That's a big, tough matchup. Jonnu Smith has been a really good player for them, and he is a guy that you would have wanted Devon Bush for. Obviously, he's not going to always be lined up with him, but and you're going to have Terrell Edmonds lined up with him at some points, and other players switching on and off, but. It is going to be tough to cover him and A.J. Brown at the same time, especially without A.J. Devon Bush. I'm really struggling tonight. But, I think that Jonnu Smith versus whoever he's against is going to be something to watch because you can't just focus on A.J. Brown all game when you have him underneath.
Something that I saw floated instead of the linebackers on passing downs, what you could do is move Terrell Edmonds to that inside linebacker sub-package role, and you could insert Sean Davis as the traditional strong safety where he played originally when he was with the Steelers, and that way you get an extra DB on the field. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's really practical. I don't like moving a ton of people, but I'd prefer to have more athletes on the field in passing situations.
It might help. I'm pretty sure I saw a report that they're not interested in moving Terrell Edmonds to the linebacker position. I think I wouldn't be opposed to it if they did.
I don't know. I don't want too much being moved, and if they are, I'd prefer it to be only in certain instances right now. I still think they're going to go with Spillane for a lot of the time. I really hope that they don't give him the green dot, not because I don't know that he isn't capable of communicating, but I just don't like the idea of that guy being on the field 90% of the time.
I think that might be a mistake. They might attack him if he's not doing well, so that would hurt.
They should attack him anyways. That's what I would do.
Oh yeah, of course. You gotta challenge the new guy. See what he can do. See if he can do anything.
So I mean, at the end of the day, looking at this defense, I think there's a lot of things to like, but they have to play disciplined. Derrick Henry can eat you alive if you allow him, and he's one of those throwback runners where he's a rhythm runner, so if he gets a head of steam going, it's like he gets better and better as the game goes on. And obviously the DBs have to be ready for this one. They've been suspect at times because of the blitz. I expect the Steelers to continue to blitz in this game, at least early. I suppose we could be wrong, and we could see what they did against the Texans, where they kind of dropped, they only rushed 4. I could see it going different ways, but I would imagine the Steelers should open trying to blitz, because even though the Titans have not given up many sacks this year, the Steelers have been generating pressure on over 50% of dropbacks this year. I saw on, I think it was the PFF NFL podcast, they said that the highest pressure percentage from a team in any single season was the Eagles in like 2012 or 2011. and they were at like 46% or something, 47%, which is crazy. They say if you're at 45%, you're causing a lot of trouble. So to be over 50% is wild at this point.
That is wild. And something I wanted to talk about is who I think is going to be blitzing. Someone I think that could be blitzing a little bit more in this game is Terrell Edmunds. With no Mike Hilton, you can't really do the cornerback blitzes anymore. There's not really someone that's as good as Hilton at that job. So I can imagine them lining Terrell Edmunds closer to the line a lot in this game because of not only Derrick Henry, but I think I could see him coming in on the blitz a lot, letting Cameron Sutton work in the back because Cameron Sutton's actually pretty solid in coverage. Cameron Sutton might have better coverage skills than Terrell Edmunds, honestly. So the trade-off of losing Mike Hilton, you might see Terrell Edmunds rush the passer a few times in this game on blitzes because, I mean, we've seen him do it. Obviously, he did it against the Broncos and it finished the game, so...
Yeah, they don't blitz DBs like they did back in 2008 for obvious reasons, but I like it when they do from time to time. I miss those deep corner blitzes. I mean, they're just not practical anymore, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see something wild like that.
That would be cool to see.
All right. Any further thoughts on Steelers defense versus Titans offense?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, looking at the other side, everyone's talking about Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger, only 1 turnover this year, playing a lot closer to, more of an Alex Smith type game so far where he's been kind of managing the game very well. Hasn't been taking a ton of chances, but also hasn't been turning the ball over. I think he's been playing very well. And the Steelers have been running the ball well, too. They've scored 30-plus points in back-to-back weeks on offense. And the Titans' defense, you might think, racing out to this record, this 5-0 record, might have a really good defense. The stats don't necessarily back that up. They're in the bottom third of the league in yards allowed per game, passing yards allowed, rushing yards per game, and sacks for and turnovers forced. So overall, this Titans defense has been just kind of skating by on defense. It doesn't seem like they're really doing a great job containing teams right now. I know they have played some solid teams. I meant to say that they just don't get a lot of sacks. They have forced turnovers. I apologize for that. Thanks for pointing that out to me, Austin.
No problem.
But in any case, this defense, while it has been forcing turnovers, hasn't been really productive in any other aspect. In general, do you think that's a product more of the fact that they've been up a lot and teams have had to throw the ball, or do you think that their defense just isn't that good?
So, I think that a big reason why their rush yards per game isn't. I'm sorry. Let me restart that. I am concerned with the rush yards per game being so high because they've been up so much, which means that. Their defense should be better against the rush because teams should stop rushing against them and have to pass. So passing would make sense. So if they just had their pass yards per game high, I would understand because teams are playing from behind. They have to pass. There's getting some garbage time points. There's trying to claw back into the game. Both are bad, and that's unideal. And I think it starts with the pressure rate. They are not getting very much pressure, and when they do get pressure, it's not turning into sacks. They're not getting those big plays there. They are an opportunistic defense. They have 9 turnovers on the year, which is tied 7th in the league, and they have been able to stop teams from scoring comparatively. Like when you look at their yards per game is ranked 26. However, their points per game given up is 16th. They're giving up 25.2 points per game, so they're technically in the top half of the league. They're just barely outside the top half of the league in points per game given up. So they're opportunistic and they're more of a bend but don't break is what that tells me, but I don't think they're all too great. I mean, maybe with Adoree Jackson back, they will be better now because that should help. He was a pretty good cornerback, pretty solid one, and it should help against Juju, Chase Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. And I'm not certain on their rushing yards per game getting fixed. I don't like their front 7 very much. I like Jeffrey Simmons. I like
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, that was basically it. I was trying to think of the defensive tackle they just took off of the COVID-19 list. Jones?
Daquan Jones?
I like him too. But, like, that's it. And then it's like, their pass rushers aren't that good. Jadeveon Clowney's a guy that we have not been a fan of that much. I mean, like, he's okay, he's decent, but, like, he's always been overrated. He is not that great. They don't really have anyone else, you know? So there's no one really to plug up the holes and stuff. I feel like the Steelers' offensive line has been playing well enough where they should be able to rush on this team. Not super easy, but, like, I feel like the rushing in this game shouldn't be super difficult.
Yeah, so starting with the pass rush, that's been a really weak part of the Titans team this year. For instance, like they only have 2 players with a pass rush grade over 64, 2 over 65. One of them being Jeffrey Simmons, and the other one's Christian Fulton, who's a cornerback that's had 6 pass rushing snaps. So that doesn't really count necessarily. But yeah, I mean, they drafted a guy, Harold Landry, who I liked out of Boston College a couple years ago. He doesn't have a good pass rushing grade. An old guy that we looked at prior to the draft and were hoping that would fall to the Steelers, Rashaan Evans, has not had a very spectacular career. In fact, he's kind of regressed throughout his career from the last 2 seasons. He's not grading out very well right now. And Kevin Byard is in the middle of his worst career year as well, going all the way back to 2016. So there's a lot of issues with this Titans team when it comes to their defense. And first and foremost, it comes with, allowing a lot of yards on the ground, not getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, giving up yards because they aren't sacking the quarterback. They've been able to get the turnovers, but how much of that is luck? I mean, I haven't gone back and looked at a lot of them, but, remember, they were up big against the Texans and blew that lead and needed overtime to win. They've won a lot of close games, and the defense has stepped up at times. But in terms of a baseline look, this team has been far off the mark from where it normally would want to be for a 5-0 team.
Yeah, the defense is for sure beatable, and it's because of all those things you mentioned. On the year, they have 6 interceptions and 3 fumbles. That's the breakdown of their 9 turnovers. I don't know how much are lucky. I honestly can't recall any of them off the top of my head. There's nothing that's like, oh, yeah, I remember seeing this highlight play from that game. But I can't recall that. But I think that the bottom line is that their defense is beatable. Their offense is scary, but this is why I came into this game feeling okay. I feel like their defense is more than beatable. The Steelers, it comes down to it. I have belief in the defense, but I think the Steelers can have a shootout with the Titans if it comes down to it because their defense is just not that good. I feel like Ben's going to be able to sit in the pocket if he needs to. I feel like James Conner's going to have holes opened up for him and any other running back that's going to run this game. I feel solid in that regard. I think that the Steelers have a chance to win this even if the Titans' offense overpowers the Steelers' defense.
See, what's nuts is they also have Vic Beasley as like an additional rotational edge rusher, and he had that 16-sack year a few years ago. He is one of the worst graded players on the team. Like, he's down there. As a matter of fact, he's got an overall grade of 38, which is 4th worst on the defense. I mean, he's been injured. I think he's only played in 3 games, but he's had no impact whatsoever. This team just can't rush the passer. The Steelers' offensive line played really well against a much better defensive line last week, and I just feel like unless if the Steelers turn the ball over, I have a hard time seeing how the Steelers aren't going to score at least 24, 27 points. I think they could easily score 30 again in this game.
That'd be historic. I'd love to go back and see the last time the Steelers scored 30 in 3 straight games. That would be, I'd have to go back a while for that, I think, but yeah, it's just, I don't think that their defense can contain the Steelers' offense. They're just not very good. And I wonder how much the Titans regret that Vic Beasley signing. That was so weird, that whole process. Vic Beasley didn't show up to camp. I don't know if you guys remember that. He didn't show up to camp for a few weeks. They had no idea where he was after he chose to sign with the Titans. I bet they regret this signing a lot at this point.
Yeah, and PFF analytics will tell you that a lot of that big sack season that Vic Beasley had a few years ago, there were a handful of cleanup sacks where he didn't necessarily earn a high percentage of pressure during the season. So just something to think about with him. So, I mean, when I think about this game, I could definitely see either team winning at Austin. And I know we still... I mean, do you have anything to say about special teams at this point? I'll check the special teams grades here.
No, nothing off the top of my head. I don't really think much about their special teams. I feel like in my head that they're just like middle of the pack. They're a solid unit, but nothing like too crazy that's worth talking about.
Gostowski missed what? He missed 4 total kicks in that week 1 game.
Yeah, and ever since then he's been really solid.
He's missed 2 since then. He has most of his misses between 40 and 45 yards. Brett Kern has been really solid. He's always a really good punter. I mean, listen to this, his net is 44. That's more than elite.
Yeah, he's been a solid punter in this league for quite a while. I feel like he typically fights with Cook on the Ravens for the Pro Bowl spot most years.
Brett Kern's PFF grade has never been worse than 67, and typically it's in the 70s, and sometimes there's been 3 years in the 80s. Last year was almost 90.
So, that's awesome.
So
nice.
He's definitely definitely. So I could see this game going either way, Austin, but I think the big difference is the Titans' defense just not being up to snuff.
Yeah, this game could come down to a shootout, and it's really going to be up to which defense can stop who first, and I'd put my money on the Steelers' defense stopping their offense first before the Titans' defense stops our offense.
If this game is tied or the Titans are down by less than a touchdown, I think the Titans will win the game just because I think at that point they might have worn out the Steelers' defense.
It's highly possible. It is highly possible.
All right, shall we get on to the Week 7 picks?
Sure, we can do Week 7 pick 'em.
All right, so in the battle of the dumpster fire, the tank bowls, that is the NFC East matchups, the Eagles somehow amazingly snatched victory from the jaws of defeat against the New York Giants. I went to bed at the 2-minute warning thinking the Giants had won the game, and surely enough, they did not. The Eagles, 12 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. I don't know if they were unanswered, but they scored 12 points in the fourth quarter to eke out the 22-21 victory. Moved to 2-4-1, just a half game outside of the division lead against the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, Daniel Jones. The leading rusher of the Giants picked up an 80-yard run in this game, but could have scored because he was on a breakaway and tripped and fell. And that is the story of the NFC East.
Turf monster got him, man. The turf monster. Yeah, this game was awful from start to finish. It just was not enjoyable, which I feel like most Thursday night football games aren't. I also hate Boston Scott because I played him in fantasy and he was doing nothing all game till that final touchdown, so that really sucked. Went to bed also and was like, it's fine, they lost, and not going to rush with Boston Scott anymore or use him, and then he got the last touchdown, so that really ended my gears to wake up to.
Lions at Falcons into the 1 o'clock games. Atlanta's got 2.5 at home. We're now a couple weeks removed from the Falcons firing their head coach, so I think that adrenaline is gone now. I like the Lions plus the points here.
I like Lions plus 2.5 too, but if they lose this game, you might see Patricia get fired.
It is certainly plausible. I am a little surprised. I mean, it's weird. They've played really bad the way they've lost this year. The only team that's lost games by blowing leads in worse fashion than Detroit is actually Atlanta. So, Atlanta fired their coach. Detroit's only 2-3. They're not in horrible shape, but losing this one would be pretty tough. So I think you might see that. You might see Patricia get the axe if that happens. We got a matchup of Ohio again, the second time this year. The Browns going to Cincinnati this time. Cleveland's getting 3 points on the road. I like Cleveland in this one. I think they'll bounce back in a big way. They're saying that Baker Mayfield is healthy now, and Joe Burrow going up against that defensive line is scary.
I'm going to pick the Browns cover as well. They have the Bengals have no William Jackson, which I hate for them, and They're out Joe Mixon. I was going to say there's another big name out, and I couldn't think of it, but Joe Mixon and William Jackson are out. Giovanni Bernard is starting the Browns to cover in this game.
A matchup between Teddy Bridgewater's current team, the Carolina Panthers, and his former team, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are getting 7 points at the Superdome. I like the Saints in this one. I know that the Panthers have been a nice kind of surprise team through this point of the season, but even with Emmanuel Sanders going on the COVID list, I believe Michael Thomas is going to be back, unless if I missed that.
Nope.
No?
He's out.
What's the deal this time?
He hurt his hamstring on Thursday. It's either Thursday or Wednesday. He came back. He hurt himself in a new place. He still has an ankle sprain, and then he hurt his hamstring, and it kept him out of practice on... Oh, it had to happen on Wednesday because... it happened on Thursday because he had a limited practice, and they did not participate on Friday. So he is ruled out already.
Yeah, I still like the Saints. I think they're going to win big in this one. I just have the feeling that the Saints defense has not played super well this year, and I think that that's going to be corrected at this point.
No Emmanuel Sanders, no Michael Thomas, no Ken Crawley. Not that Ken Crawley's any good. I'm going to pick the Panthers to cover because the Panthers, even when the Saints have been really good, have typically played competitive games, even when the Panthers have been bad. I like this Panthers team. Not amazing, but they're still getting stuff done without Christian McCaffrey, which is impressive to me, so I will pick the Panthers +7.
After a month, Josh Allen was looking like one of the top 2 MVP candidates. He's come back to earth the last 2 weeks, and I was kind of hoping we'd get a good matchup so that we could see what might happen with Allen, to see which guy is he closer to right now. But they're playing the New York Jets on the road in this one, and no matter how well Allen plays, I can't take anything from that right now. So I'm going to have the jury out on Josh Allen for at least another week. Buffalo's getting 10 on the road. I think that's a little generous right now. Like I said, I'm about a week away from thinking the Jets are actively tanking at this point. They are quite the story.
Yeah, give me the Bills to cover by 17. They need to start jacking up these numbers for me to not want to pick the team playing the Jets to cover. Bills cover by 10 easy.
Another NFC East matchup, the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington football team. This is basically a pick'em. Dallas is getting a point on the road. I'll take Washington. I think that the Cowboys are in free fall right now. And even though Washington doesn't really inspire a ton of confidence, I am rooting for the 4-win division winner team, which is theoretically possible. I think it's like Washington or New York up until I think New York still could technically win it with a 4-win team. So whatever is the case, I'm rooting for the 4-win division winner. So I believe Washington has to win for that to happen in this one.
I think so. I think that's the only way it works. But yeah, I will pick Cowboys here. I didn't really know who to go with. Both teams are bad. Cowboys are down Zach Martin. Their entire offensive line is completely different from last year now at this point. I will still pick them to cover by winning somehow.
Green Bay Packers at the Houston Texans. Green Bay's getting 3.5 on the road. So Aaron Rodgers played a really horrible game last week, and based on what he's done throughout his career, it is extremely rare for him to play bad games back-to-back weeks. This feels like a big Aaron Rodgers type game where him and the Packers are gonna blow out Houston, who just have not figured it out on defense, and I don't think they will. Deshaun Watson's playing well, but it's not going to be enough. I like Green Bay by a bunch.
Yeah, I got Packers covering in here too. I think that they got this handled.
Probably the highlight 4 o'clock game we have. This was going to be a primetime game, right?
It was originally Sunday Night Football. They moved it down just so they knew they would have Sunday Night Football this week.
Buccaneers at the Raiders. The Raiders, we don't know what's going on with their offensive line, so there's no line right now. I like Tampa Bay to win by 13. The big key is, obviously, if the Raiders' offensive line is healthy, can Derek Carr get the ball to Henry Ruggs deep? Because Henry Ruggs has been a revelation for the Raiders and Derek Carr. He's playing much closer to that MVP level guy he was like 4 years ago with Ruggs than he has without him. So he's like a completely different guy. So I want to see that, but I don't think we will. So I'll take Tampa plus or minus 13.
So when the points get revealed, I will take the Bucs to cover if the line is less than 7. So starting at 6.5, I will take the Bucs to cover. Anything more, I will take the Raiders plus the points. I think that this game is going to be a sneaky, solid one. I think that the Raiders are going to do decently as long as their offensive line plays, which I think they will. And I think Jonathan Abram will play as well. So I will take, like I said, the Bucs to cover if the line is less than 7.
49ers at the New England Patriots. New England's getting 2.5. Were you surprised by this line at all? Because I was not.
No, this game I didn't really know how it was going to go. The Patriots are kind of downward at the moment. They're not playing really well. The 49ers just beat the Rams, but like overall they haven't been playing well, so that's not a surprise. That being said, I'm picking the Patriots to cover. I think that the 49ers are just too injured of a team this year.
The 49ers got their first win outside of New Jersey last week, and it was against a team that's only beaten NFC East teams. So I'm not sold on them just yet. So I'll take the Patriots to cover. Chiefs and Broncos. This is going to be AccuWeather says it's going to be 22 degrees here for the Denver Broncos Kansas City Chiefs game. I wonder if that impacts how you think about this game. The Broncos have one of the best PFF graded defenses, but I don't know. I still like Kansas City. They're -8 right now. I know that the Raiders beat them, and they showed the blueprint for how to beat the Chiefs, but no, I'm not convinced just yet. So I like the Chiefs to cover here.
There's snow on the forecast for that game, so it's really difficult. I hate picking snow games because I feel like they're always low scoring. I'm going to pick the Chiefs to cover anyway. I'm just not a big believer in the Broncos. They keep shooting themselves in the foot, man, and making it so that like games are close or they lose by a lot.
Well, what I was going to say is the Chiefs just showed last week they can ground and pound it if they have to.
Yeah, but see, that was against a not-so-good defense this year. I don't know if they could do that against the Broncos.
Maybe not. Familiarity within a division always makes things kind of wonky, too.
That, too.
Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers feel like they should be better than 1-4. They've had a lot of close losses. The Jaguars, there's finally talks of benching Gardner Minshew right now. I'm not sure what the purpose of that would be. Personally, I thought the whole idea was to play him this year and see if you need to take another quarterback. But I digress. I think the Chargers win relatively big here. Give me Justin Herbert and the Chargers -7.5.
Yeah, I said last week I was basically done picking the Jaguars, so I'm going to pick the Chargers to cover.
Sunday Night Football, an NFC West matchup, the 5-0 Seattle Seahawks at the 4-2 Arizona Cardinals, who just bombed the Cowboys out of existence on Monday Night Football last week. Seattle off the bye is getting 3.5 on the road.
I will still pick the Seahawks to cover in this game, but I really wish I had Jamal Adams back. Jamal Adams, I was expecting him to be back after their bye week, but he still did not participate in practice this entire week. I will still pick the Seahawks to cover. I think that Arizona's going to struggle against Russell Wilson because he's playing at an MVP caliber. Arizona's defense has been solid, but I like the Seahawks. I know I said earlier this season that the Seahawks are going to allow people to stay in, but I think 3.5 is just enough for me to say that the Seahawks could win by 4, just barely.
Even off the bye and a little short rest for the Cardinals, I like Arizona in this one. I think that the Seahawks are due to lose a game at some point here, and even though Kyler Murray wasn't super efficient last week when he was completing passes, they were doing a really good job getting the ball down the field. DeAndre Hopkins looks really good, I think. And I have this feeling, I'll draw a quote from what Austin had mentioned the other day, where it was the never trust the NFC West, which I feel like we could say about any division, but the NFC West, the Cardinals and Seahawks have had some really crazy games the last few years, too.
It's really funny to talk on that. On my time hop today, 4 years ago today, or maybe it wasn't 4, maybe it was 5, was the Seahawks-Cardinals game
That
tied, where they got bold chances where short field goals. The Cardinals drove down to the 19-yard line. It was a 19-yard field goal. Missed it. The Seahawks drive back downfield, go for the field goal, and then a tie. It really is example of how the NFC West is just wild. It was literally the Seahawks Cardinals. I was literally thinking that today. That's really funny.
I was also thinking about that game too, but I think it should be a good one. But yeah, NFC West definitely expecting a crazy game from those two teams. Last but not least, we have Bears at Rams for Monday Night Football. The Rams are getting 6. I like Chicago here. I know they haven't been an impressive 5-1 team, but the last 2 years they've done a good job controlling the Rams' offense. And when it comes to the Bears, Nick Foles is a volatile quarterback. If he does play well, the Bears are a really good team because they have a good roster around him. So I think that 6 points is a bit much for the Rams. I like the Bears all the way in this one.
I'm going to pick the Bears +6. I'm not a big fan of who the Rams have beaten this year. I think that the Bears can keep this at least competitive, and I also think that the Bears probably win this game.
X factors and bold predictions. You want to go first?
So on offense, I got Deontay Johnson, and on defense, I got Robert Spillane. And the idea behind this is that in Deontay Johnson's game back, I think that he'll be a big X factor. I think he'll make the game. I mean, it feels like every game has been a change off on who's going to produce. It's been Claypool and Washington. Johnson was game 1. I guess Johnson wasn't game 1. Schuster was game 1 because he got 2 touchdowns. Johnson was game 2. And I feel like now that he's back, it's either his or Juju Smith-Schuster's turn. So I'm picking Deontay Johnson in his return to go big. And on defense, I think Robert Spillane might have been the cliche and easy answer, but I think that it is a big deal that now you have a backup linebacker in for where Devon Bush was doing really well. It might change how the communication is on the defense, and we still don't know who has the green dot. He might have the green dot, making him even more of an X factor in this game. So that being said, my bold predictions for the game are that Deontay Johnson gets 10 catches in his return, and Robert Spillane has a 14-tackle game. And then finally, Ray McCloud gets 3 touches on offense and then returns a ball for a touchdown in this game, whether it be on whether it be on a punt return or a kick return, because I figure that this is the game he takes over for Deontay Johnson on punt returning as well. So who are your X factors and what are your bold predictions?
Oh, sorry. Got the notice that my computer battery is low. My X factors are on offense. I have Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm just picking a different receiver than Austin in this one. Juju's been quiet for a couple of games, so there's those in the media in Pittsburgh who like to bash him just because he's being a good team player and because he's not producing big every week. That means he sucks, apparently. But I like him to go off for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. And then on defense, I have Joe Hayden. I think there are those who have been saying that he seems a little bit slower, like he's lost half a step. I think he's still playing relatively solid. I like him to finish with 10 tackles in this game. Be aggressive, come in with a sack and an interception. And then third, I have Anthony McFarland scoring his first NFL touchdown. So, top to bottom, 2 5-0 teams, Austin. 2 enter, only 1 can leave, 6-0. Who do you like to win in this one?
So I like Pittsburgh's chances. I kind of see this as a 50-50 game. I really think that either team can win. I am going to Tennessee to win 30-27. I hope not. I think that Tennessee is just going to be able to edge out Pittsburgh in this game. Maybe a turnover happens that really messes it up, but I just have it's not a bad feeling, but I see this going 50-50, and I think that Steelers starting 5-0 was pretty solid. I think that it had to come to an end. I think that the Steelers were not going to stay undefeated this year, and this seems like not a bad loss to lose. You know, I mean, every loss sucks, but I mean, it's just, I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How about you for this game?
I do feel like it's a pretty solid toss-up. You could go either way in this one. I still can't get past the fact that the Titans defense has really struggled this year, and they've hemorrhaged a lot of yards and points at times. Derrick Henry's definitely a tough animal to crack, tough one to stop. Ryan Tannehill over the top is definitely concerning. The DBs need to be on their game. If they are, though, and the Steelers can get up big, I really like the Steelers' chances to generate pressure against this offensive line, minus Taylor Lewan. I really like that the Steelers, they have that big game with Baltimore next week, but I think that this was the perfect time to have another 5-0 team come along because you can't get too far ahead of yourselves. You don't need to get too psyched up for the Baltimore game because there's this game to worry about. So not that I thought focus was an issue with this team, but it just reassures you that the focus is going to be reasserted and pointed directly at the Tennessee Titans, because for years now we've seen that the Steelers have gotten the ball rolling and then they start to feel pretty good about themselves, and that's where that disappointing loss comes. But even if they lose this week, I don't think it would have anything to do with the Titans just not being a team that the Steelers overlooked, and it had more to do with the fact that the Steelers were just beaten by a better team. But that being said, I like the Steelers to win 31-25. I just have a hard time seeing how the Steelers don't score 31 points in this game with the way the Titans' defense has played, unless if the Steelers turn the football over, but so far they haven't, and nothing I've seen from Tennessee. I know they have their turnovers, but they're just not generating enough consistent pressure for me to think that the Steelers are going to turn it over in this game. So I like the Steelers 31-25 in this one.
Hope you're right.
All right, let's move on to NFL news before we wrap this one up. The big news is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed Antonio Brown. Yes, Antonio Brown is heading to Tampa Bay to play with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This after we saw yesterday that everyone was talking about the Seahawks with Antonio Brown. No, as a matter of fact, it's Tampa Bay and Tom Brady again. So here we go. What are your thoughts on the move?
I don't like it for them. He's destroyed three locker rooms now in the Patriots and in the Raiders and the Steelers. So I think that overall it's not a good move, especially with the weapons that Tampa Bay has. It's not like they needed a weapon when they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, have Leonard Fournette, and they have Ronald Jones, who's been playing really well. They have Gronkowski. I know Gronkowski hasn't been the Gronkowski of old, but I mean he's still there. And I like Cameron Brate. I don't like the move for the Buccaneers. I wouldn't have liked it for the Seahawks. It would have made sense for the Packers though to pair someone with Devontae Adams. I just think that like a lot of these teams that were going after him had enough weapons already, and they're just looking for like a cheap. Like, I don't know. I'm not a personal fan. I wouldn't have done it if I was any team, honestly. But yeah, that's I think bias.
I get this feeling that whoever adds him is not going to win the championship, and I understand the upside from terms of production, but I don't see how you can ignore the issues in the locker room. Unless if he's completely reborn, which I just don't see happening, I don't see how you can see this ending any other way. I need it to be proven that it can end any other way.
Him and Bruce Arians already smack talked each other before this happened. Bruce Arians said he was never going to sign him and he didn't want him, and then Antonio Brown responded on Twitter like he was like this was a while ago. Like seems like bad news already.
Yeah, and here we are. Apparently not so bad.
For now.
But
see you in like a few weeks.
I digress. All right, what else we got here? The Ravens traded a third-round pick and a conditional fifth for Yannick Ngakoue from the Minnesota Vikings, who recently acquired him for a second and fifth-round pick for the Jaguars, or from the Jaguars, I should say. But I'm kind of torn on this because the Vikings were going nowhere. So on one end, getting something for Ngakoue is good because I believe he was going to be a free agent. So yeah, they'd have lost him anyways in free agency. I mean, you could have let him go for a comp pick, but who knows how that would have gone. And I don't know, the Vikings probably should not have picked him up, but I'll give a little bit of credit to them, to their GM, for admitting that they made a mistake and just basically waving the white flag, because Lord knows this is a lost season for them.
Yeah, I mean, Yannick is a winner in this situation because he gets to go to a winning team that actually has a shot to maybe go far. Meanwhile, the Vikings, they took a loss basically for no reason is what happened. They got to move back from the second to the third round, and then their fifth round pick got moved back a few spots on what they would have had. So, I mean, I guess it's good that they got signed, but I view this as a failure.
It's a steep price to pay for what's ultimately just 6 games of a pass rusher.
Yeah, and it wasn't even he was solid for the Vikings, but it's like they went nowhere. That actually probably hurt them because I mean, if they're now trying to tank, trying to get Lawrence or Fields, Yannick might have helped them win games. The game.
The Ravens are also expected to sign Dez Bryant to their practice squad. I'm kind of surprised that now is the time that someone signs him. The last time he was signed, it was to the Saints, and he immediately tore his Achilles in his first practice with the Saints. And he hasn't played in, 4 years now?
Been so long. I mean, I get with the new practice squad rules, it's easier and you can take a risk with these older players instead of wasting a roster spot. I don't know. I mean, I don't hope that. See, it's hard. I kind of root for him. I wish he went to another team. Like, I kind of hope that he is good. I don't think he will be because he was so bad when he finished off. I really don't think he had anything left in the tank. And then he got an Achilles injury. I mean, if he's able to pull it back and actually do something and make it to the Ravens' active roster, that'd be kind of a cool story.
Indeed, it would be. And then lastly, the Giants traded Marcus Golden to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no.
Alrighty then. Anything further you wanted to add?
No, I think we're good.
We'll look up Dez Bryant's PFF stats real quick here.
Sure.
Dez Bryant has no snaps in 2020. I'm aware of that. Thank you. Can I just get, his career? I don't need... There we go. Overall, he's got a lot of good grades in here. 73, 80, 76, 82, 90, 68, 83, 72. I thought his last season was 2016, but I guess it was 2017. He had a string of bad games the last few weeks of the year. I don't know. He's confusing. He's been kind of a locker room headache, but he was so dominant for a while and then disappeared. He really is just a bizarre case study for an NFL player.
That's why I kind of hope for the comeback, but it sucks that he's with the Ravens that would have to happen. This is his last chance, basically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's been gone for too long. Any closing thoughts here?
Nope.
Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, please feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. You can check out our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And, until next time, thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast, and have a terrific day.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.